This is the Tree of Life, Season 22, Chapter 5. In this episode, we will be discussing ordinary substitution events in the context of damping and drawing conclusions about the distinction between path parsimony and time parsimony. To start out, in the last several episodes, we talked about sequential substitution events, where the incoming consciousness compels compliance through measurement reversal during a path, which is erased both prospectively and retrospectively. In past episodes, we talked about a distinction between path parsimony and time parsimony in substitution events. The idea was that in infinite recursion, all the myriad convoluted paths descending from the initial negation occur in time parsimony, as distinguished from what is recalled by the observer on path parsimony. Now, we can imagine that the distinction between path parsimony and time parsimony is the distinction caused by a kind of inflation. During the convoluted paths associated with both sequential substitution events involving the incoming consciousness compelling acquiescence and substitution events in infinite recursion, there is an expansion in the paths incorporated into the timeline of time parsimony, whilst for path parsimony, these paths remain unintegrated. That is to say, that the compelling acquiescence occurs within a path, which is erased both prospectively and retrospectively for the observer, being the outgoing consciousness. Whilst, in infinite recursion, the manifold paths descending from the negation likewise don't occur in the history of the observer due to the substitution event. In effect, we must imagine that there is only one observer in the universe described by path parsimony. The environment and all other consciousnesses are behaving as a waveform. This means, for example, that the many mixed coherent states represented by the descending convoluted paths, so far as they interact with that environment, occur within that waveform. Now, we also talked in Season 13, Chapter 8, how infinite recursion resulting from a substitution event represents an infinite quality factor, and underdamping within that event. The underdamped oscillator evolves all initial superpositions into a mixture of coherent states, whereas the overdamped, such as described with sequential substitution events, does so selectively. Thus, we see in the overdamped case, a single convoluted path described by an interaction with the incoming consciousness in the sequential substitution event. Whereas, in infinite recursion we see a myriad of paths describing interactions with the environment. Thus, in underdamping there is a significant distance between path parsimony and time parsimony. In overdamping, there is a slim distance between time parsimony and path parsimony. But in either case, we can say that the expansion of the waveform in interaction with the outgoing consciousness is what we are seeing in the path erasure. For although for the outgoing consciousness, these paths are not recalled as historical, they are fully represented in the history of the environment as time parsimony. It is this mismatch between the history of time parsimony and path parsimony which permits the outgoing consciousness to retain its subjectivity and position as an observer. That's the end of the podcast for today.